Okay, changing of the guard time. I think I should probably say a few words. Word has officially come down that Stephen Moffat will be leaving Doctor Who and no longer running the show after the end of the upcoming series, which will be Series 10. Now, I've actually been making a point of avoiding going online and seeing what people's reaction are to it, but I'm gonna hazard a guess that it's very divided because Moffat himself and his time as the showrunner has been very divisive. There are people who love it, there are people who hate it. For my part, I've got mixed feelings about this. For the most part, I really like Moffat. I like a lot of what he brings to the table. I like the sorts of stories he tends to emphasize. I like most of the characters that he himself actually created. Heck, he wrote Heaven Sent, which, this past series, which is still quite possibly my favorite episode of Doctor Who ever. But at the same time, I'm going to openly admit that, it's probably a good time for him to go. Whether you like him or not, no one person should be in charge of Doctor Who for too long. Because one of the many things that's great about the show is its adaptable nature. And obviously we see that, the face of that is when we get a regeneration, we get a new actor. But the behind the scenes change is also really important to that. Because if you know enough about classic Doctor Who, you can divide up classic Doctor Who in a couple of ways. You can do it by doctor or you can do it by showrunner. Because you'll see the way that certain showrunners bring, what they feel are the best ways to direct the show. And you may agree or you may disagree, but it keeps changing and it keeps refreshing. So that's the non-obvious visual way that the show is able to refresh itself in addition to being able to swap out the actor. Now, I'm not going to get into a lot of the stuff that people do or don't like about Moffat. I mean, I've read a lot of the criticisms of Moffat, and while I don't personally share a whole bunch of them, I'm not going to say that they're invalid. I've seen some very good points made about the man just in general and about his writing in particular, specifically on this show. And you know what? They're valid criticisms, but for my part, I have still really enjoyed most of his time here. I think the main thing that I'm hoping to get is to get someone who's a little less in love with their own creations. I have seen that with Moffat at a couple of points, but with Clara especially, man, I was so done with that by the end, but I'm not going to rehash that. Now, we do know who's taking his place, and that's Chris Chibnall. Now, I've got some mixed feelings about him a little bit. I gotta be honest. Now, he has run a show before. He's the showrunner for Broadchurch, which I keep meaning to see, and I keep not getting around to it. It's one of the many things on my to-do list, so I don't know how good that show was. I can't judge by that. All I can really judge is by his output as a writer on Doctor Who, and that has not been great. It's a really, I don't even want to say mixed bag. It's a lower tier batch of episodes that he himself has done. I mean, he started writing for the show way back in Series 3 with 42, which is a okay episode. The ticking clock is kind of interesting. There's some neat ideas, but it never really comes together. Probably the best work he did was in Series 5 on the Silurian two-parter, which was pretty good, but again, not exceptional, not fantastic, but it's like, that's a solid rehash for that kind of character, sure. Then on Series 7, he did Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, which is probably my personal favorite thing he wrote, which is a rip-roaring good time. Not a lot of depth to it, though. And finally, The Power of Three, which I thought was fine, but I know a lot of people really hated. And while your mileage may vary on these episodes, I don't know really anybody off the top of my head who ranks any of these as favorite episodes. And that kind of makes me nervous. Now, again, without getting to whether or not Moffat's time as showrunner was awesome or terrible or some sort of mix, his output prior to being a showrunner was kind of impeccable. The Empty Child, The Girl in the Fireplace, Silence in the Library, Blink. I mean, these were consistently some of the most loved, best rated episodes, so having him be the showrunner made perfect sense. I look at Chris Chibnall's output and I kind of go, That being said, I feel like a lot of the things that were sort of issues on his episodes were on the conceptual level as opposed to the writing level, and it could quite possibly be that he was given a story here, write us an episode of this story, and he just made the best thing he could out of it. I don't know if that's the case or not. I don't know enough about the behind-the-scenes workings of Doctor Who. I get the feeling that there are some writers who come in and do that sort of thing. They're given something to do, and others like Neil Gaiman who can basically come in and probably do their own thing. And of course, the lingering question is whether or not Peter Capaldi is going to stay after Moffat leaves. I'm I'm gonna say odds are probably not, because this coming up series is going to be his third series, and 3 series is the most we've gotten out of anybody. Well, we got a little bit more than that with Tennant because he stayed on for the specials. But sort of 3 full proper series, that's the most we've gotten out of modern era Doctor Who. So just statistically, you kind of go, yeah, he probably won't stick around. I personally would like him to, but you know, he may be done with it by this point. He may feel he's done everything that he's gonna do, and if he wants to move on, yeah, it's about the time pretty much everybody did. But overall, I think it's an exciting time. It makes me excited for not only what's going to happen when we get Chris Chibnall at the helm and whether or not we get a new Doctor, but also for upcoming Series 10, because, you know, it's not always the case, but oftentimes creators get really ballsy when they know they're wrapping up. And so I'm really going to be kind of interested and excited to see if Moffat's got anything like that left in the tank. Now, granted, it's also possible that he's just run out of steam and he's just going to coast through this last series. I don't think so, though, and I certainly hope not in any case. But regardless, Stephen Moffat leaving Doctor Who, what are your thoughts on this? It had to happen eventually. You happy? You sad? Are you me? Kind of like, it was a good run, but it's time for him to go. Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments and let's talk about it. Like this video, subscribe to my channel, find me on Twitter at Council of Geeks, check out the Council of Geeks podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, and until next time, this council is adjourned.